Hey, what's happening, guys? Mike from MetaComix coming at you with the very first episode of Digging Deeper. On this installment, we're going to be talking a little bit about Secret Wars issue number 3, specifically digging deep into the character of Dr. Doom, hence why this episode is titled Dr. Doom, the God That Failed. So let's go ahead and get right into the thick of things here. One of the big differences between Marvel and DC is how they approach the superhero genre and the overall point they're trying to make with their characters and stories. At DC, you have these larger-than-life mythological gods like Superman and Wonder Woman who are insanely powerful and could basically rule the known universe if they wanted to, yet despite all of this massive power, their biggest struggle is attempting to blend in with humanity. Essentially, DC characters are gods who struggle to be human, to literally incarnate in human culture. Over at Marvel, you basically have the opposite. Marvel characters are typically ordinary human beings who go through some form of scientific experimentation and end up gaining superpowers. Kind of like Spider-Man getting bit by a radioactive spider, for example. Rather than struggling to fit in with humanity, they struggle to rise above it. Essentially, Marvel characters are human beings who struggle to become gods, to rise above the broken fragility of their inherently and hopelessly flawed human nature. Which brings us to the subject of this week's very first episode of Digging Deeper, Dr. Doom, as he is in the new Secret Wars run from Marvel. Now, for those who might not be keeping up with the Secret Wars events, it's basically the cataclysmic, the end is nigh, cluster you-know-what that completely destroys the Marvel Universe, preparing the teeming masses for an all-new, all-different comic book universe. After Earth 616 and the Ultimate Universe collide and were destroyed, a new world was created called Battle World, and its grand architect was none other than the infamous villain Dr. Doom. Somehow, Doom gained the power to create an entire planet using pieces of worlds that were destroyed by incursions, sort of knitting them together like some old lady crocheting a blanket. All the inhabitants of this world call Doom God, a title which he seems to absolutely adore, and he rules over his creation as a deity. Which then brings us to the latest installment of the Secret Wars main event series, which dedicates a significant portion of time to fleshing out this new Dr. Doom and giving us a more in-depth look at what makes him tick. What we actually discover is that this god is an incredibly insecure human being who has been given the powers of a deity but lacks the ability to inspire true, genuine worship from his subjects and followers. He's the literal embodiment of the overall struggles of most Marvel characters, which is to use their powers to become something more than human, to transcend the boundaries their frail and flawed human nature has placed on them. One of the first things I noticed when reading this issue was how weak and fragile Doom seemed during the first few pages of the book. Strange, the sheriff of Amagado, and Doom's right-hand man, was informing God about all that was happening in the various realms of Battleworld, but the deity incarnate seemed as if he could care less. He was distracted with other things on his mind, preoccupied, it seemed, with his own abilities to manipulate reality and create, something that might make him think of himself a little more highly than he ought. Yet during the course of this discussion, we discover that it's actually Strange who is keeping things running smoothly on Battleworld, and that he has the faith of an all-powerful god, and his abilities to keep hidden those things which need to be kept secret, and reveal those things which need to be known. In other words, while Doom may have the ability to create in extraordinary ways, he is not all-knowing, and he seems like he lacks the skills or desire to meddle into the affairs of men, so he actually needs another being to get this job done. Since when does an all-powerful deity need help? Why isn't Doom more concerned with the everyday struggles and issues his people suffer through? We find out the answer later in this issue when Doom is having a conversation with Susan Storm, one of the biggest pieces of development this character has seen in some time. Doom and Susan discuss how some of the people in Battleworld have begun worshipping a different god, the sun in the sky, which actually turns out to be Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Susan and Doom had him suspended in the sky, forcing him to light the patchwork world below using his powers because he had defied the true god, Doom. He goes on to say the world he's made is flawless, but he is a poor god because he fails to inspire the people to worship him and be satisfied with what he has done and who he is. Doom suggests that perhaps he should have removed himself from his creation as other gods had done in the past and demand the faith of the people. Later we see him remove his mask and get a quick look at his disfigured face, revealing how fragile this god really is. Again, the question this brings to mind is what kind of deity is so fragile, so insecure that he needs to be comforted by his worshippers? What kind of god is so vulnerable? The answer is, a true, genuine deity would be nothing like Doom, which clearly demonstrates this dude is not really a god at all, although he might possess the powers of one. His arrogance, pride, and deep desire for the approval of others is what will be his downfall in the end, as it is with all of us. Whenever man attempts to take the place of God, whether you believe in one or not, you likely understand the concept I'm getting at here, it ends in disaster, usually with massive casualties. Just look at world history with people like Hitler, Nero, and so on. These individuals believed they were gods among men, that they alone possessed the power to fix humankind, but all they did was leave death and destruction in their wake. This is the path Doom is on, I believe, and its end will be his destruction, whether that means his death or just simply his reign as God coming to a close. Well, that brings this episode of Digging Deeper to an end, and I hope you enjoyed it, and look for a new installment this Friday, and then every Friday after that. Well, that's the plan anyway. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Alright guys, I will see you in the next one.